young people should be attending this session because it's about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship can happen from 8 to 80 at any age. Second, only entrepreneurship is reserved for men or for women also. All are giving very politically correct answers by your face. And I want to start with failure at my own individual level and at the institutional level. I am from a village, so I belong here. So it's a rural setup. Everybody is looking at rural entrepreneurship or rural ambitions. I happen to go to a couple of institutes, IIT, then IIM. Then we set up this Buddha Institute. So I am from a village, so I have sort of overconfidence in people who go to IIT or IIM. So I thought we'll start with those talented individuals who gone to these hallowed institutions. They would be the fittest for the entrepreneurship. And that's how we started. And we were an abject failure. Our model didn't work. And you can imagine these guys who sort of where they go to Goldman Sachs or they go to Infosys. I don't know, Infosys takes it. But they didn't make the cut. They were not entrepreneurial type. They're fit to be maybe advisors, managers, and maybe CEOs in some places, but not fit for entrepreneurship. So maybe the intelligent people who go to IIT, IIM allowed more mistakes, maybe not intelligent enough, so I made that stupid mistake of relying on this. And we have shifted the model completely. Entrepreneurship, whatever it takes to be an entrepreneur, to succeed as an entrepreneur, perseverance, great determination, but not a degree. So that's where we are. I'm happy to be here to have this opportunity to moderate this session. We are very, very glad to have those who have gone beyond the normal mold of seeking a job and actually becoming job creators. We have 3 of you here, and I would like to, without losing any more time, I want to invite Iaishah. And she's come from Meghalaya all the way to talk about your story. And we'll take it from you to the next 2. Then we have Catherine. Now we have also. Where is she? Okay. Then we'll have Sathish. So, Iaishah, to your way. Yeah. Start with. You want to come here or you? I'm okay here. Okay, great.
To be here with you all. Should I call all of us the failed people or successful people, sir? So, very delighted, and let me start by saying the failure sharing is my favorite subject because I fail. My journey itself is a series of failure. But the best part is that after failing for 13 years in the journey, Selco Foundation called me a champion. So that is the best part of it. Yes. So I was born and brought up in a weaver's family. My mother is a weaver. So I inherited the skill of organic dyeing and handloom weaving from my mother. And I continue it. And it was in 2009 that I started my entrepreneur journey by founding this Rakyat Handloom Weavers Cooperative Society along with the government initiative. So in 2009, we engaged about 300 artisans with 20 paid members. But as gradually, by 2018, we are left with 3 artisans. So that's why I put a question mark there. Why? So why? In 13 years, instead of scaling up, why do we come down to 3 artisans working with me? So this made me think, why? And what's the reason behind it? So the answer is, next. The answer is there's a failure in overall management, like operation, technical, marketing, finance, overall failure. That is one reason. And the other reason is there's a market, the lack in market connect and network. There's a big gap between our artisans and the market. So with these 2 answers, I started reviving this tradition of handloom weaving. So reviving the art, how do I revive it? So in 2019, I founded this Kamai Habashongkai. It's a movement which means converting free time into money. So here what we do is we go to the villages, give awareness and training to women to take up this tradition, this handloom weaving. And we start marketing our products through the brand Eriweave. Next. So how do we work? This was our business plan. Like we work from farm to fabric, like from the Eri silk farmers straight to the market. Next. So one of those two failures that I have mentioned, how to fix it? How to fix this failure? So I put it there, fixing the leak tank. Because why? I find that no amount of support, no amount of fund, no amount of investment is going to work. It's going to keep this business sustainable unless I fix the leak tank. So it's like, I feel like in 13 years running the cooperative society, I find that the government agency, organization keep on pouring fuel into our vehicle. But as we go in short distance, because there's a leakage in the tank, it stop. The fuel finish, then stop. So I try to fix this leakage by enroll myself in the online and offline business management program, then got myself incubated in many incubation center, like I'm graduated from the incubation of IIM Kolkata Innovation Park and many incubation center. So as to fix myself, to get myself the skill how to manage business, how to manage finance, operation. And the second one is I try to search for right support system, mentally, technically, and also financially. So God will not forgive me if I don't mention this. The first support in that venture, the first people to come into my support are the Selco Foundation. I think I have to mention his name also. That time, in 2020, Babu Bikash Roy was there in the Selco Foundation Guwahati office. So he came into my support in the technical part. So we work with the Selco Foundation from that time. So it was because of the support also. So why I mention this is that for entrepreneur, finding the right support is very, very important. Not just financially, but mentally and technically also. So the challenges that I faced was getting the trust and cooperation of the people. So my venture is a social venture. So we work with people in the community. So first we have to get the trust, the cooperation of the community in us so that we can carry it forward. And getting the right support, as I mentioned, getting the right support also. I remember when we our business plan, when we go to the government office and many government agencies, how many times we got rejected. So it was really very hard to get that support. But then we didn't give up, and at last we get the right support, as I mentioned, with Selco Foundation and other organizations. So we collaborate with them. Next. And also, because I failed for 13 years, so I changed the strategy of not running in the cooperative society again. So I founded this Eriweave Private Limited. Eriweave Private Limited. Why? You may ask why. Why I shift from cooperative to the private limited? So that I can become independent. As the saying goes, too many cooks spoil the food. So there will be so many cooks in the society. So I shifted it to a single cook. So the private limited company, so that I can become independent in running the business, and also to have a complete different identity from myself and the company. And the company become accountable, and I become accountable to the company. So that is how I changed strategy, and then build a strong team. I try to build a strong team, and build and keep relation with the support system. That is very, very important. So I built the relation with the Selco Foundation in 2020. Until now, I try to be honest. I try to remain honest with them so that I can keep that relation. In case I fall in the next 2-3 years, they will pull me up. So that is very important. And collaborated with different organizations. Okay, our milestone is 2019. We are with 3 artisans, and now we are engaged with 100 plus artisans, supporting livelihood of 100 families. And we get also the support of 50 solarized machine. And we have trained more than 200 artisans. And our roadmap is to expand the market reach. As I had mentioned, it's very, very important to look at the whole ecosystem of the entrepreneur, of the livelihood that you are working with. Why we fail at the beginning is because we don't have market. So it's very important that the whole ecosystem is complete. And collaborate with different organizations. We have a dream to support 100 more artisans by 2027. So I open up to all, any organization, to join hand with us, anyone, and collaborate with us in increasing the, supporting more 100 more artisans by 2027. So you are welcome after this session to discuss to that. Thank you.
You are noticing lots of attributes, some of which I don't have. Fantastic story to go and come back from the brink and make it grow. Fantastic. Now make call upon Sathish, if you are ready next to go, and then I'll ask Catherine. Sathish has established a corporation called Swachha Kaadyam. You will tell that story, including the failures also there.
Hello all. So to begin with, one familiar question that I get is what does Swachha Kaadyam mean? So Swachha Kaadyam means pure food or unadulterated food. Yeah. So we started in 2021. We are an agri-processing and marketing startup based out of Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh. So we largely deal with groundnuts. Anantapur is one of the largest groundnut growing belts in the country. We also deal in millets, pulses. Of late, we recently started maize. So we are currently working with about 400 farmers and some 10 to 20 FPOs in Anantapur region. And till date, we have procured a cumulative volume of around 1,700 metric tons of food grains, which would roughly translate into 10 crores of sum, which has been directly transferred to farmers. And we currently have a cumulative turnover of close to 13 crores. So with these numbers, I was actually surprised when I got a call from Nikhil, Selco Foundation, saying that VG has referred me to this conference to speak about the failures. I was thinking, with all these numbers at the back, where is a question of failure coming into the place? Okay, so I was constantly asking Nikhil, I still remember, I'm not a failure. This is not a failure story. Then I went to Veggie and took his inputs. Then I went back to the drawing board. And this actually presented me with a great opportunity to take a pause and introspect. So what's that we've been doing for the last 4 years? Because we are so overwhelmed with the numbers, with the operations, that we rarely get opportunity to introspect and to look into the things which could have, would have, should have been done the other way. So then I was thinking to where to begin with. So again, the venue gave me an opportunity. I am in Bangalore. 12 years ago, it was the failure. It was my failure of converting a call from my IMB into admission is what actually sent me to Institute of Rural Management, Anand, where I was open to a very different world in which we are actually living parallelly, which is the rural society. So that's where I came to know about the legend of Dr. Kurian, his path-breaking work with the rural communities. And I started working with several cooperatives, and then like the case with several other entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial bug bit me and eventually drove me to begin this venture during the peak of COVID. So during last 4 years then, I thought, okay, that actually gave me a way to kind of speak in this session. More than calling them as failures, I rather address them as setbacks or the opportunities which actually helped us in altering our ways and to move ahead, which in startup parlance they call pivoting. So we also kind of, not pivoting in the true sense, but we did change some of the things, and we are still living with some of our mistakes or setbacks or failures, whatever we call them. So basically I have kind of, you may forgive my presentation, like habits die hard. My MBA habit of making presentations with sleepy eyes continued. I just sent my presentation in the morning to Nikhil. But essentially, these are the three aspects that I would like to speak about where we kind of did not do well, or we did mistakes, or we kind of ended as failures, largely putting them into three baskets. First, like any other agri-business, the market part, then the finance and the production part. So in the market part, so we largely deal with organic staples, and we also deal with the conventional produce as well. So like any other organic startup in this country, so we also initially looked at the metros, the tier 1 cities or towns as the market opportunities or market avenues to market our produce. So we never looked at the local markets. So we work in Anantapur. Anantapur is a significantly large district with huge population and large consumption of the produce that we are dealing with. But we consciously or unconsciously turned blind eye to this market. And we lived with that kind of attitude for about 2 years. Only then we kind of realized, no, we really need not look at Bengaluru or Hyderabad or Mumbai for market avenues. There are people who are willing to consume. We really need not price our products at exorbitant prices and make them really unaffordable, and in a way creating an artificial niche market. So we started working on the local markets. That's one of the major failures. For the first 2 years, we really struggled in generating revenues because we were only looking at these large pockets, urban spaces, which is actually crowded with several other market players and players with deep pockets, whom we cannot kind of withstand in the competition. And the second aspect, so we were only focusing on the value channels rather than the volume channels, the channels which would give us higher margins. In this whole process, we have comfortably ignored the basic philosophy of extending our support to as many farmers as possible. So as long as we are dealing with value channels, the volumes used to be less, which means we were selling less, and that would trickle down into procuring less. And thereby we were stuck with only 50 to 100 farmers, but unable to scale up. So the moment we understood that this is one of the major problems, besides others, of course, which is actually kind of holding us back from reaching out to the more number of farmers. So we understood we should also kind of get into those sales channels or those avenues which would give us volumes, not just, it's not a margin game every day. So if we keep on catering to only those niche segments or smaller buyer groups, then we'll end up working with only 50 farmers and 100 farmers. And most of them are small and marginal farmers. So the total cumulative value that or the social impact that we would be able to create would still remain less. So on market fronts, these are two areas where we have failed right from the ideation stage. So it's not somewhere at the execution stage where we failed, right from the point when we kind of thought of doing such an enterprise, the entrepreneurial idea, the inception, and during all these things, these were the aspects where we were kind of completely blind to. And coming to the finances, and there's this adage which says that every entrepreneur knows that death is inevitable, but he or she chooses to say not today, so tomorrow. So that largely comes from the financial aspect. See, in many ways, we kind of survive on a day-to-day basis, particularly when we are into agri, produce, procuring, and marketing. So this is a very working capital intensive game. So we failed in kind of looking at the scale that we could reach and the scale which could be funded by the financials. Financials in the sense, in our case, it's only the lenders. So we underestimated our scale and thereby overestimated their abilities as well. So we thought 2 crores, okay, 2 crores are whosoever is currently helping us with finance will be able to manage. Okay, 4 crores. We still thought, yes, he or she can help us over there. But as we are kind of scaling up, so we understood that our finances are slowly drying out. And in the midst of all these things, we were clueless because we never had plan B. So in case of market space, we can do something. In case of production space, we can still do something. But finance is not something that we can postpone to the other month or the other quarter. So that actually pushed us into a kind of crisis. So for the last 9 months, even today, we are not kind of completely out of it. So we are in a way, this particular short-sightedness in terms of financial requirement, in terms of identification of the financial sources, has actually pushed us back to square one. So we are almost like 2 years, we went back 2 years in terms of our growth or in terms of revenue. So this is one of the hard-hitting failures that we have faced in this journey, and we are still kind of co-living or contemplating with that. And the last part, the farmers, or the production aspect of it. So I think I missed out on explaining the business model. It's quite a simple business model. There are a group of farmers in 7 to 8 villages of Anantapur. Anantapur is one of the driest districts in the country. So these are all small and marginal farmers, most of them doing agriculture on rain-fed basis. They don't have proper sources of irrigation. So we procure the produce they cultivate. We try to provide them fair price which is over and above what otherwise market would give, and also try to cut down on the transaction cost by farm gate procurement. We process such produce and we market. Okay, so that's where the farmers come into play. So in terms of our farmer engagement, so we did not look beyond the forward linkages or the market linkages. See, agri value chain, as you all know, is very complex, and there are n number of interventions that one can do. So we believed in the principle of not having too much on our plate which we could not choose. So we thought, what is that we are good at? Okay, looking at the markets, finding the markets and trying to link farmers with these markets. So, but there are there's a lot of layers to this. Okay, so agri value chain, though we say we are providing forward linkages, farmers are happy. But even if we are in a place to provide that support, farmers may not be in a situation to avail of this support. So I'll kind of give you a small example. There is one farmer who has grown groundnut, let's say 4 quintals or 5 quintals, which is 400, 500 kilograms per acre. Okay, so for him or her to cultivate, to kind of manage the crop for 3 months or 4 months, they require some financial assistance. They require some sort of loans. Not every time they would get these loans from banks. And as an organization that is working with them, we are not working on their financial part, nor we are helping them to secure any sort of financial assistance from any other players. So they eventually turn out to their traditional and to-go person who is the money lender. And this fellow lends, does actually a lot of good, though we look at them in a very critical way, lends finance at a very critical point in time. But then, under an obligation, that farmer sells back the produce or returns the loan in kind rather than in cash. So today the harvest has happened and we go to the farmer saying that we are willing to pay you, if market price is 60, we'll give you 65 rupees or 66 rupees, whatever it is, which actually is a very fair price. Farmer will also be happy, but he or she is under obligation to give this produce back to the lender instead of selling it to an avenue where, which otherwise would fetch them a better price. So though there is no mistake of us, no mistake of farmer, the very system is such that sometimes even when there is an opportunity, farmers are pushed towards the wall where they would not be able to avail of such opportunities. So this not looking beyond the market part, not looking beyond the forward linkages is one mistake which is kind of costing us even now. So we are saying 400 farmers, had we actually helped them in kind of securing loans or in any which way, where they would become completely independent of this lender or the financier, that number would have gone to 1,000 or 2,000 also. So that again we consider as one of our failures. The last one, commodity limitations. Again, so when we kind of ideate and when we start this enterprise, we'll largely play to our strengths. So in our case, our strength is we have significant expertise and experience in marketing of staples. It could be cereals, it could be pulses, it could be oil seeds and all. But, and with the same idea, when we went and we pitched to the farmers, they're happy. The ones who are growing those crops are happy to sell the same to us. But we kind of, we never realized the fact that this is not the only crop that the farmer grows. Not every time, year on year, season on season, they will not stick to groundnut or millets or pulses alone. So when the market is favorable, they'll switch to some sort of fruits or vegetables. And when we are saying ki our support is limited, we'll only procure groundnut. No, if tomorrow you are growing tomato or tomorrow if you are growing onion, no, we are not here to procure. That's not our business. Okay. So then again he has to run back to the same trader for market linkages. So being a small and marginal farmer with very miscellaneous or negligible volumes, they cannot afford to go to larger market avenues. They go back to the trader and that fellow says, no, you are selling the X crop to that person and for Y crop you are coming to me, this is not going to work. If you want to sell this crop, you just give me an undertaking or you just promise me that you would sell next crop of so-and-so crop to me. Okay, so again we are a failure. So here I am saying 1,300 metric tons, 1,500 metric tons, 10 crores or 15 crores. But still we are not kind of solving the problem completely here. Okay, so I think, sir, these are some of the problems. I mean, like the list would be endless. But I thought these few aspects would be something, a kind of food for thought for everyone in the hall, because these problems are kind of ubiquitous. They are present across the country. These are not something very specific to Swachha Kaadyam. Anybody who is working in the agri value chain at one point or the other would have faced similar problems. So, yeah, right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sathish. Very complex, and I know my question to you is, do you get sleep at night? Yeah, you're surviving so far, and good luck to you. Yeah. Catherine, you're next. So we heard crafts, now we heard the farmers, small farmers, marketing, complex it is. And now to you, and please describe your model and to give us, get some smiles in the room with your example.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone, esteemed guest, panelist, and fellow change maker. Thank you, Selco Foundation, once again for having me. I am so honored to be a part of this Impact Failure Conclave 2025, where we embrace not just our success, but also celebrate our failure. Well, my name is Lalmuanpuii, and I came from Mizoram, northeastern part of India, a region rich in culture, biodiversity, natural resources, yet challenged by infrastructure and the ever-pressing need sustainable development. Well, like many of you, I started my career in a different field. After the pandemic hits, I worked in Life Insurance Corporations of India as a sales representative. And 2022, I started venturing into clean energy solution industry named as Thlado GreenTech, as we see in the screen. It is a partnership firm. I work with two amazing electrical engineers, and we focus on designing, installation, and consulting on solar energy. We are the empaneled vendors under the Power and Electricity Department, Government of India. Until today, we are the #1 vendors for the PM Suryagar with 280 kilowatt installation just in a few years. Thank you. Well, I don't have a great business idea, or Nikhil assigned me to give a speech just for 7 minutes. I don't think I'll finish it. Okay, anyway, I'll try to wrap up in 5, 6, 7 minutes. All right. So, I would like to share one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my journey, which is execution is everything. Execution, the difference between success and failure. Many startup fail not because their ideas are bad, but because they fail to implement them effectively. In business, one of the most important thing is not about having a good idea, having the best concept. It's about giving the best services, meeting customer expectations, and building credibility through our action. At Thlado GreenTech, having a vision is not only enough. So, most importantly, how we execute that vision through dedications and discipline. And this is what matters the most in our farm. So back in 2022, when we started Thlado GreenTech, one of the biggest challenges that we faced was to convince people to trust solar energy, especially in rural areas like Mizoram. Well, those pioneer companies who came to Mizoram 10 years back, they just come and do the installation. See, when it comes to solar energy, the most important thing is the after-sales services. They fail to meet the customer expectations by giving unreliable services. And that was the biggest challenge that we go through. See, meeting customer expectation is as important as the technology itself. So we focus on educating our customers about solar energy, the impact that it can have in the future. So I would like to say that we are not just selling solar panels, batteries, and inverters. We sell our trust too. And secondly, many business, especially in rural areas, we lack discipline. In Thlado GreenTech, we focus on ensuring timely project completions, and besides that, following strict quality. We also make sure that every installations, every complaint that we receive from the customers, we keep them everything, the informations that we need, and we keep in touch with the customers, and this is our priority. And execution is not just about starting something new, it's about setting high standard consistently. So thirdly, I would like to say that execution also means being flexible and adjusting your approach when needed. Back in 2022, the biggest challenge that we faced about solar energy was people lack awareness. So we conduct social media campaign, podcast in YouTube channel, and TV advertisement. And then we expand our business not only in solar energy, we also expand into cold storage too. And besides that, we focus on solar pump too. Well, so I would like to wrap up by saying this. I believe that in life there is no destination. It's all about enjoying the journey. Well, despite hailing from a non-technical background, I am from economics background. It was really tough working with a group of engineers, technicians with different mindsets, with different background, and it was really stressful. But you know what? I embrace the challenge of working in solar energy because I see the impact that we have made in the future. Dedicating myself to mastering solar energy and electrical functioning, and discovering that the journey was more rewarding due to its complexities. A business does not succeed because of great idea or great concept. I believe that it succeeds because of great execution. Thank you.
You don't need a technical degree for anything. Economics is good enough. We heard such fantastic stories of 3 entrepreneurs, 2 women and 1 man, outnumbered. So I think this is a perfect time to not only celebrate their life as individuals, as execution, as you said, is everything. You did it all. Questions for them. Anybody who wants to ask any question related to what they did.
I think all 3 of them have succeeded in the absence of an ecosystem. And so it is, Selco came in pretty late for them, but all the drive, all the energy, etc. And I don't think Selco, whatever support Selco has given them, I'm not sure if it encompasses everything that they require in an ecosystem. So I think it's their personal triumph, even in the absence of an ecosystem.
So, first of all, congratulations to all three of you. It's all your resilience, grit to succeed, I think, that has helped you succeed. My question is, this is something that I personally struggle with. A country of our size, right? It's not going to make a huge difference if you have installed solar panels in 100 homes, 200 homes, or you have engaged 1,000 farmers or 2,000 farmers. How do we make sure there are very few success stories? Unlike in the commercial world, tech world, we see a lot of unicorns, a lot of companies now, generating hundreds and millions of dollars of revenue. So how do we make sure that some of these stories that you're talking about, and those who are not in the room, there are another few thousand such entrepreneurs, right? How do we make sure that you guys scale? How do you go beyond Anantapur? How do you go beyond Meghalaya? How do you go beyond, because otherwise there's very little impact. Though there is success, but there's very little impact. So any ideas, any thoughts, or any constraints, anything that you think is coming in the way?
So, sir, one effort in this direction is already being made by Vegji, where he's kind of trying to collectivize entrepreneurs. And we are, in a way, trying to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, not the support system. Support system, of course, everybody is working about. But then, through Buddha Institute, he's actually trying to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs. So for the last 1 year, I've been associated with the Buddha Institute, where I could see the kind of, the way untrepreneurs are helping among themselves. They're trying to co-evolve. So, for example, the products which I am kind of making here are being sold in Pune by another entrepreneur who is working in that region. So a network of entrepreneurs, of course, ecosystem is no doubt essential, but then this network of entrepreneurs who can kind of bring into play the synergies. I have a few strengths, and then the other entrepreneur has some other strengths. If we kind of collectivize entrepreneurs and collectivize their strengths, I think to some extent we can reach where you are talking about, sir.
Yes, as I did mention, that to make my business is in craft and livelihood through tradition. So to keep this sustainable, we need that collaboration, like between entrepreneurs or between organization. And I always mention that for the organization who came in and hand-holding the entrepreneurs, that is also very important, hand-holding them till they are fit to go, like to take up this business. And that this will make them sustainable, their business sustainable, and also to look into the whole ecosystem of that business. That is very, very important. Sometimes the government agency or the organization, they are working only in one part, like technical. Okay, like let's mention Selco. They are supporting like the solarized machine, but they don't look into the other part. Now, if you give the entrepreneurs a machine, you support with the machine, what will they do with their products? So that is important. So the whole ecosystem, like you should like handhold them till the last stage till they can get the back what they invest. That.
Any other comment, Sanjay?
So I said, firstly, thank you very much for very inspiring stories. I was really amazed at what you all have been able to achieve, particularly as Swati said, despite no ecosystem. So this is your personal story. So I'm very curious about one question, which is, in this uphill journey, where you saw probably more hard days than good days in your, what excited you to get up in the morning and be motivated on a particularly hard day? Why did you keep going? Anybody? I mean, I would have given up long back, which is why I'm very interested in knowing.
Okay. So what motivate me is the livelihood of my community. That's the one point that motivate me. Sometimes stories from the women that I work with, like see every month end they used to come and take whatever they like. We don't call salary. So that time, one woman used to say, with this money, I'm going to buy, to pay my children's school fees. With this money, I'm going to buy this year, this month rice ration. So this motivates me to move forward. In spite of all the challenges, it motivates me. Like, if I stop this, sometimes, yes, with all this challenge, sometimes I want to stop. Why don't I go to other business? Why don't with this investment? If I put on a hardware store, I would have got a profit, more profit. Because here in this industry that I'm in, I'm getting 15 to 20% margin in the arts and craft sector. We are getting very less margin. But then that thing that motivates me, if I leave this, where will all these women go? So that's the thing. Thank you.
It's not a personal fulfillment, but fulfillment in the lives of the people who are working with.
It was really insightful, yes, madam. Well, for me, back in 2022, we were working for one village which was unelectrified. 30 households was unelectrified. So there were no electricity. All they have is few candles and all these things and temporary portable electric lights and bulb, all that was all that they have. So this was in, it was far from Aizawl and it's 200 kilometers away. So in that village, so we work for them, and then we have made a project under focus. And then, so 30 unelectrified houses were being fully powered by solar energy. And this is one of the biggest thing that make us happy. So at the end of the day, see, if we measure our success just by GDP or the money that comes, if we measure everything in terms of money, then what's life? I think you agree with me. So at the end of the day, making someone smile, keeping someone smile, and then happiness will come to you in many ways. So, and that's the one thing that keeps us going. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm like, more or less, my answer is also on the same lines. So whenever we don't procure, the cases of our failure are what actually kind of keep me going. So whenever we don't procure from a farmer, we immediately get a call from them saying, "Ki sir, is season mein aap to humse kharida kiya nahi." Okay, it's not that we are kind of really changing their lives. So even if Swachha Kaadyam was not there, I'm like, they are selling it to somebody else. So hardly we are adding like 4% or 5% additional income once or twice in a year. But they are coming back to us and saying, "Ki sir, it would have been great really if you had come and if you had procured." Then that actually gives me a purpose. So for so little value, if people are this grateful, then imagine what it could be if we really create that large value, that big thing, and how great the old would be. I know it's kind of a little bit a utopian idea, but still, that gives me a purpose to kind of move ahead, despite, like Vejji's question, sleepless nights.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it makes... question. In the morning we had this comment that policies you can make, but what helps people's lives is a live example what we are seeing. They are touched by people, or people are touched by what you guys are doing, celebrating that. That matters at the end of the day. Otherwise, as economics we say decimal signs, so we say what we are not going to live 50 years. You're going to live, you are living life meaningfully with a purpose.
Hi. I had a question to all of you. Especially because you spoke about how much impacting people's lives in the communities that that you work with means so much to you. I'm very curious about what are the considerations or factors that you consider when you're making strategic decisions, especially decisions where the risk is very unclear, where you're not very sure about the risk and the consequences that could come with decision making, because you are also at this sort of helm of this sort of decision making that could improve their lives or sometimes, really affect them in ways that might not be favorable, right? Like that sort of decision making also lies with you when you work with these communities. I'm very curious about your thought processes
Sathish, you want to start?
around.
It can lead to financial meltdown in your company.
Yes, and that also. Yeah, like whatever, good or greed, right? What kind of considerations do you make?
So see, it's a tightrope walk, I say, okay. Walking on a tightrope, some 10, 20 feet above, either step on the either side, we'll fall down. But we try to kind of, at least what we do in our organization, because 2 of my other partners are farmers themselves. So we try to kind of put ourselves in the shoes of farmers. That's the community that with which we work. And we try to see this is how we are planning to go ahead in this season. So what could be the repercussions? So will this actually kind of help them or say, if not help them, at least will this have any kind of negative repercussions on their incomes or on the way they work? So this is how we think and we take decisions. We try to put farmers first. We try to be in their shoes and be at the receiving end and try to understand how it could be.
And what happens when those decisions are not favorable for you as an organization?
So that's the risk. That's the risk that we are taking for all the purpose that we are talking about. Sometimes we take a hit, but we'll have to be a little bit calculated in that way. So at the end of the day, we kind of should not collapse so that the whole purpose will get defeated, right? So at least till date, we kind of never in a situation where it's like a binary decision to take. Okay, we try to kind of maintain some sort of equilibrium, but sometimes this way or that way, there were seasons where our decisions have actually affected our margins, but still we are happy because the farmer community is happy. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a question. Mr. Kulkarni.
I mean, I would like to make some general comments because I also worked in this rural entrepreneurship area. And many of you may be knowing there are institutions called Rural Self-Employment Training Institutes. Now, these RCTs are there in every district of India. So their whole purpose is to develop rural entrepreneurship. So one is, with how can these be used, revitalized? These RCTs can be revitalized for the rural entrepreneurship. And so people like you who are at the macro level thinking of entrepreneurship should really work with RCTs to make them more dynamic, more market oriented and more realistic. That's one. The second one is, we have here in Dharmasthala in Karnataka, where they run a huge rural entrepreneurship program, and they have a product called Siri. Under Siri brand name, they sell so many products, food products, textile products, and all that. So Mr. Dharmasthala Hegde, who runs this, he told them, if you promise me to sell 50% of our products locally, I will find 50% of market outside. So he said, I cannot produce only for the outside world. First, you produce what local people need. And 50% you promise me that you will sell locally, the rest 50% you leave it to me, I will sell outside. So this philosophy that we also cater to the local market, not just local producers, is also a very important thing. And in RCT or RootCity, we have found that upskilling is more important than creating new entrepreneurship. New entrepreneurships are very difficult to come. It is first of all, we have these great people here who have those entrepreneurship attitude. But it is not easy to come. Only 1 in 1,000, 1 in a lakh can have that. And then the whole market and all complex things. But can we make an agriculturist much better in production or more efficient in production? Can we make a dairy person more efficient? So upskilling and improving the efficiency of the existing occupations is an important part in rural entrepreneurship. So these were my
Actually, my name is Vinay, and like me and Nikhil, we are part of a study at Selco, at which we are trying to assess the entrepreneurship ecosystem of India through inclusion and climate focus. And one of the observations that we have had, and I have the privilege of having entrepreneurs who come from remote rural background, is that often entrepreneurship is synonymous with startup. And startups are generally DPIIT registered or a company registered under Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And that is a privileged information and ability to register all those things. Right? In our nation, we find entrepreneurs who are artists, who are farmers, FPOs, self-help groups, etc. So my question is, what is the difference between an entrepreneur who is in Bangalore, a startup, and an entrepreneur who are there in remote part of the country? How do you distinguish these two? That's the question.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Abhishek, a fellow seeker. I had a question for you, Sathish, which is regarding the rural market. As I think Kulkarni ji also mentioned, we often do not see that as a huge market opportunity. And just to give one stat, like I did some back of the envelope last year in terms of what is the market for about 20 commodities in rural India, from food to cement and steel to paint and other FMCG products and so on. And the number was close to about 20 lakh crore, the rural market demand, right? But we often leave that market demand to the large corporates to actually serve. So I wanted to actually understand what all did you learn or unlearn as you tried to serve that local market? Like what were the new challenges? How did you overcome that? If you could unpack that a little bit, because I think there will be a lot of transferable learning. And just a quick reflection on the earlier question on the scale. Like there are few like us or like you here, but how do we scale? I think it's also about reimagining the way we want to see scale. Few becoming large and unicorn versus creating millions of horses. I often say that, like, do we only want a few unicorns or many, many, many more horses? Because that makes, one, the system a lot more resilient. The power dynamics doesn't necessarily shift as much as you would see only a few unicorn taking over the entire market. And three, it becomes a lot more inclusive. Like MSMEs create in this country way many more jobs than the large industry does.
Okay, that's a big question.
Right?
But anyway, I will not take it further because we have...
There was a comment.
Yeah. But all that is, you can take it offline with Sathish also. Now we talk about ecosystem. In my view, and I think many of you will agree, family is the first ecosystem we have as children. Many of you are, including the three of you, are products of your parents and how they brought you up. It's the resilience or the perseverance you show and you get up in the morning again with a new thing, Nayi Subah. So I think this is my mind, that is the analogy or image. But then let's talk about the country as a whole or the planet, if I can dare to say that. How do we look at the larger ecosystem, forces that favor you or forces that support you and forces they don't? Where is that ecosystem? You look for it yourself. So in those issues, on those issues, we have a very eminent panel. We have Sanjay Guha, we have Swati Bogle, we have Dinesh Goel, we have Kuldeep. They will talk about not just from their own other corporate experiences also, but they are also experiences of supporting rural entrepreneurs or rural youth. If I start with Kuldeep as to, if there are ambitions in terms of what you are saying, I will support so many farmers or so many people with solar or so many craftswomen, where is this, can we have a movement of people or platforms who will support any rural youth, man or woman, who wants to do things next about a problem that he or she sees in the neighborhood? Kuldeep.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So that's a like very macro question and challenge. Can there be a platform to support rural youth, and should there be a platform to support rural youth? The answer is yes, that's a given. And over the years, we have had different type of platforms. But what I would like to bring to this room is my experiences and what I have learned. In some of the mistakes we made as an organization, while we were kind of trying to be a platform for the rural youth. So I think that is the context what I would like to share. So very quickly, I don't want to talk too much about our work. The core of our work is how do we get young people from the age of 13 to 23 to start taking local climate and civic actions in their neighborhood. So we all see waste, water, energy, pothole, air quality. We see all these issues. We felt about 10, 11 years back that in our country, we don't have an army of actual problem solvers, like going out and doing something. So that's the problem we are trying to solve for. And 2-3 things we have learned is one, and somebody asked the urban rural, so I'll probably anchor it around that. Both in urban and rural, we have made, or the language of entrepreneurship it's become an end state. Right, so there is some end state you're supposed to reach to, but actually being an entrepreneurial is a state of being in the present and doing things continuously, right? And obviously I'm articulating this in a very fancy way, but what has happened to most of these young people is when they are wanting to be entrepreneurial, the conversation is already around the end state because of the communication we are having, right? When Sathish mentioned 13 crores turnover, like I could imagine urban young people saying, but when will this become a unicorn? What is the valuation they are going to get and things like that. And in that process, I think somewhere we have put a value and devalue to entrepreneurship as well, right? This is something I have learned from this experience, especially with the urban young people. So the idea has to be big bang. In some way or the other, either from a perception point of view or from some numeric value. So if I come and tell you we are working with 3 million young people in India, everybody's eyes will roll, but only I know what we are doing with those 3 million people or what is the kind of impact, right? So I think the first point what I've learned is that this language, now we are taking this language to rural spaces. And I think what I'm only speaking from my experience, so please take everything with a pinch of salt. This is the reality I'm seeing. Then we are taking this language and trying to force fit young people in rural spaces to operate in this world of language, jargon, etc. So, for example, entrepreneurship is a craft and a science. And what mistakes we did was, we try to almost kill the craft and the instinct of young people in rural spaces, because we had also had this Kool-Aid that entrepreneurship is a very structured process, right? So first you have to make your business plan, right? Then you have to do a market research. I'm not saying there is something wrong in the process, but I think this process is also overvalued to a great extent. If I'm a young person, there's a lot of value in just developing the craft, right? In actually learning, like she mentioned, customer satisfaction is the most important thing, or execution. Now, you can't put that in a plan. You can write that on a plan, that my vision statement is to bring customer satisfaction, but the doing it is difficult. And what we have seen is young people in rural spaces are somehow being boxed. And in our case, we were boxing them because we were boxed by our funders. So the funder wanted to see, okay, how many rural young people came up with a minimum viable product, how many came up with the business plan. And in that process, actually, I feel what we did was we damaged their entrepreneurial spirit, because we were kind of trying to force fit. And then the learning we had was that with younger people in rural areas, the journey has to be more asynchronous and reactive in nature than synchronous and programmatic in nature. That's the learning we got. So what I mean by asynchronous is, it has to be more reactive. When the young person in a rural space is trying to do something and is stuck, there's more value trying to unstuck them together at that point, rather than, make everything like a program. So that's one of the big learnings we got. The second learning we got working with young people is that there is no pathway. It's almost like suddenly come and become an entrepreneur. So in our work, what we saw is, the more change making they do, and I'm using the word change making because that's the work we do, at a younger age, you automatically become entrepreneurial. So you don't have, and they are actually very naturally good at that. They have a stronger association with their local setting. They care for their local setting. They want to do something for the local setting. But there aren't enough platforms to change making. And change making which is almost unrestricted, right? Like not passing a judgment. So say, for example, if a young boy in a rural area has gotten 5 people avail their Manrega scheme benefits, that is as valuable as, coming up with a food processing unit later. But these small units then lead to an entrepreneurial setup. So I think one of the things which is missing in rural ecosystems is we don't have the practice ground or the playground to just for them to first fall in love in being entrepreneurial. So if you want to create more Olympians, first you'll have to get more people to fall in love with playing sport, and then you create that thing. So I think that is something I see is missing. And they're naturally good at that. Like there is no dearth of intrinsic motivation. And the third piece where we failed is, like someone mentioned, mentoring. Now, we always look at mentoring from a technical lens. But I think a lot of mentoring is also from a horizontal lens, right? Like just understanding what stage of life they are in, right? What are the pressures they're going through? Because ultimately an entrepreneur is a human at the end of the day. So until the human part is not getting close, so I'm talking with younger people from the ages of 18 to 23. So long story short, when we understood from these failures and tried to tweak it a little bit, we naturally saw more young people becoming entrepreneurs. In our case, we saw them becoming more social entrepreneurs because they had that playground of doing a lot of change making in their area. So I think these are the three things we have seen are the impediments in creating a platform, and hopefully we are making small changes towards that.
Yeah, thank you, Kuldeep. And often we copy corporate sector success models. So too many books are being written about corporate success. Maybe that is what is impacting our thinking. It's good to bring out some fresh thinking from ground, your experience. I'll turn to Swati to talk about her experience and failure as well, and some fundamental thinking you've done about nurturing women entrepreneurs. If you wish to focus only on that, but you go beyond as well.
No, but the time is so limited that you can focus only on one thing. But one thing is that I've observed that right from morning today, everybody is so comfortable talking about failures. I don't think that's very true with me. It's not easy to talk about failures like that. And so it's going to be a bit of an effort to talk about failures, especially personal failures, which is what this conclave is all about. Another observation that I've seen in discussions on failure is that success is singular. I succeeded, whereas failures are plural. We failed, So the moment you go back and say that we attribute, say a collective failure, I think somewhere you are diluting your own role in that failure process, and that is also not a very honest, nice thing to do. So I just leave that thought, and that's also why some of the things that it's difficult to talk about your own failures. About women entrepreneurship, but let me tell you a bit about the background from where I come from. For many years, I was leading a non-profit called Tide, and we were trying to spin off women entrepreneurs, grassroots women entrepreneurs, from the Women's Technology Park that we had set up in about 140 kilometers away from here with support of DST, etc. Actually, the DST did not want us to just say, no, just do a bit of awareness, just do a bit of skill training, that's okay. But we said, no, but that's not neither the beginning nor the end of what we want to do. And so we said, no, we'll try and make women entrepreneurs. And that's where our major learning journey, I think, happened. And when earlier somebody had asked the question, that you go up, I have found that when you get into any business, whether it is your own enterprise or whether it is you're trying to, go up to a point, there is no coming back. As she said, or as she said that, once you've gone that far, even exit and retreat is not possible. So you just have to go ahead and finish it. And that's also not an easy thing to do, So I was thinking about the failure stories of us and the women entrepreneurs that we were trying to spin off in the absence of an ecosystem, because personally, when we started working, this was more than about 15, 18 years ago, the concept of an ecosystem for women's entrepreneurship, the way it is defined with so much clarity today, it did not exist. That kind of clarity on the ecosystems for women's entrepreneurship, it was not there. And I also must confess, I did not greatly feel the need for an entrepreneurship early on when I was trying to work. Right? The closest that came to my mind when we were looking at an enterprise journey, women's enterprise journey, was the Kudumbashree program, where I don't think they were consciously creating an ecosystem. What they were doing is they kept responding to needs, and in the process, some amount of ecosystem got built up. So that was one thing. Then I think I'll just come to some of my failures, personal failures, because we did not realize, the personal challenges that women go through, and what motivates them, to get into an entrepreneurial journey. Of course, there is lack of jobs. There are no opportunities in villages, and the only opportunity for a little bit of income, a little bit of self-esteem is to do something of your own by yourself. Give yourself some money that you can call your own. So that is why what we found that most women were entering into entrepreneurship without the kind of clarity and ambition that, both of them had, So then these women were failing, I think, because they were not enterprise ready, and we were also not able to track who's enterprise ready and who's not enterprise ready, etc. So there were a lot of things. So what we did was, and another thing that we observed is that an ecosystem is not a one-size-fits-all kind of a situation. An ecosystem for example, would be a different kind of an ecosystem than an ecosystem for solar energy, etc. And so these small nuances in ecosystems were something which was not getting so much discussed. We invariably found that, there was awareness creation, there was skill training, maybe business training. It would be followed by some attempts at access, linkages to finance, linkages to markets, etc. But all that, according to me, done in a random, haphazard manner, without any great sense of purpose, we were not quite creating an ecosystem. And all the efforts that we were putting in, the women were putting in the efforts, we were all putting in the efforts, but we were not going anywhere forward. And so then what we did was, I said, let me make a list of enablers. What are the enablers that would drive, lots of women to get into the enterprise ecosystem? And if the ecosystem addressed these enablers, then maybe we have a working ecosystem. So I started doing my list of enablers. I put even simple things like access to nutrition, access to childcare, and some things like a supportive family. I even put in things like domestic abuse, absence of domestic abuse, because I found that in conversations with women, these were the kind of women, who wanted to get away from their lives, and these were the daily handicaps that they were facing, Then I also told myself that now I have a list of enablers, etc. There was a statistic that was thrown at us at that time saying that only 5% of rural and women's enterprises succeed. I thought that if we are able to build an ecosystem, maybe we should take it to 10% or even higher than that. But our enablers, the way we had defined them, it was just not taking us anywhere. So we added more enablers to the list. So what did we do? We found that learned from other people. Kudumbashree had said that they had put a counselor for a lot of these women entrepreneurs. So added more and more things into the list. Our donors were very happy. Oh, these people have got a long list of enablers, but the enablers was not taking us anywhere, and we were just, complicating everybody's life. That's what I thought. Then at which point of time I just said that, okay, now I need to sit back and pause and make a fresh beginning. And I think all the failures that we had with making these lists and enablers, etc., had told us what we should not do. And basically what we did was we were trying to copy success instead of trying to assess what were the failures in the ecosystem that we were building. And also we were trying to see what those women needed. So my new list, if I can call it that, was that, we must look at a women's pre-enterprise journey, what kind of, what she has gone through, what are her motivations, etc. we understood that we are like wannabe enterprise builders, for women. The huge divide between, people like us, urban, educated, English speaking, and the local people. However much, and all these things, we were trying to talk to them, but that barrier existed, There were social barriers, there were cultural barriers, there was a trust deficit. Somebody mentioned trust in the earlier discussions. The urban-rural divide. Often there was a gender divide as well, because we found that some of my male colleagues, they were couldn't be bothered about women if they succeeded or not. Some of them even did not want women to succeed because that's where they were coming from. I realized that I was not communicating empathy to them. I was not trying to step into their shoes. And that is because I think I was trying to meet donor targets, what I had proposed in my projects. But that was not what I was meant to do. And I really, in the beginning, I did not feel empathetic also. But I just said that more and more conversations with these women, understanding their hardships, etc. And then we started, Transforming India Awards of Niti Aayog. First award alongside doctors, social workers, etc. She was illiterate, she was backward class. And then we said that, yes, I think we are doing something right. And we pursued and continued to do that. The other thing also, what we did wrong was that I think we were cherry picking whom we thought were a successful women with high probability of success, whereas we should have created an ecosystem for any and every woman to, with aspirations to come and work in this field. Finally, I would say that the ecosystem that we built, and if I had to look at an ecosystem map, I would look at it as macro elements of the ecosystem, which was skill training, access to technology, market, finance, etc. And there were some satellite micro elements around each macro element. Some small things, which if we were able to address those small issues, then the macro ecosystem got built, and then it became a self-propelling system. So I think that is what worked. But I think it worked because we were humble enough to accept that we made a mistake, and not that, don't go around copying other people and trying to copy their success.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Swati. And I think for ecosystem to realize mistakes and to admit mistakes in front of everyone else is a big brave attempt, and no wonder
I told you in the beginning it's not easy.
It's not easy, yeah. But to go and talk about it in public and here is very useful. And congratulations on one of your mentees or incubatees to get an award at the Planning Commission or Niti Aayog. Thank you. So I want to turn to Sanjay with enormous mentorship experience that you have. Would you talk to us about how do you mentor entrepreneurs in general, but rural entrepreneurs in particular? What challenges you heard they are facing and not sleeping at nights, and what keeps you going? You asked the question, what keeps the ecosystem going? What it takes to build the ecosystem in terms of mentorship? Sanjay.
Sure, thanks. So I have to say I have the privilege of working with a few rural entrepreneurs, a couple of them that have been incubated by Buddha Institute, which is run by Goel. And over the years, I have learned two big learnings or two big failures, which I remind myself every day as I think about how these entrepreneurs are managing their business. The first is the obvious. The success of any business depends to a very large extent on the capability of the entrepreneur itself. That is obvious. Entrepreneurship is a very, very hard gig. And just pure passion is not good enough. It's one of my learnings in life because it happened with someone who I should have instinctively realized had the passion for a cause, but did not have the capability to execute, to the point, Catherine, you made. That gentleman would have been better off in many other fields of business, but not to have become an entrepreneur. To be an entrepreneur, you need some expertise, you need some domain knowledge, You need to have that drive, the perseverance, the grit, because it's an uphill journey, and you need to be able to work with people. It's not cut out for everybody. And you have 3 examples in the room of people who have made it happen, as Swati said, despite no one helping them from an ecosystem standpoint. But there are many who have failed. And I think back on what one should do to instinctively and early on be able to judge people and what they need if they do need to succeed, or indeed can do something different in life. So that's one, and I keep that in mind because it did happen with me. The person failed. It was quite a setback and didn't need to be. The other failure is really about the ecosystem. I live and work with entrepreneurs, so their pains, their joys are very much mine. And I think about why is it so hard for us to provide a simple, sensible, structured, formalized ecosystem. We keep talking about it, but the biggest failure to me is our inability, including mine, to be able to make some of it happen for people who really are doing fabulous work, as we heard from 3 of them. So I'll be very brief. In my experience, when we talk about the ecosystem, I found there are 5 areas that I have never been good at, and I have learned and tried to get better at. The first of which is the access to growth capital. No business can flourish. No business can grow if you don't have capital. It is true that there are many entrepreneurs I work with who have no experience in writing a business plan, a convincing narrative. Many of them may not even have the capability. But that can be solved. What cannot be solved is providing formalized, institutionalized access, like they have in urban places, to lenders of debt and equity who understand the risk of an impact investor, entrepreneur, and accordingly provide funding. We haven't been able to crack that, and that's a big failure. In that context, grants from the government are always welcome at any stage for any of the individuals who are entrepreneurs. But it is most welcome at the very early stage of entrepreneurship. That is when you need the seed capital, you have only family and friends who believe in you, if you have even friends who do believe in you, and you're trying to establish what is called in jargon terms the proof of concept, whatever you're doing. Why is it going to work? Where is it going to work? Why is it worthwhile backing you? At that time, to get a private investor to invest in the business is hard. It's a leap of faith. That's when grants become even more important than when I'm successful and I have lots of money and I get, but that is more about achievement and award rather than actually survival. The problem I find there, to my surprise, is that we're still not very good at providing complete visibility on what are the grants for my stage of my startup in my industry, which I can get either from central or state governments. And some don't even have the wherewithal or how to go about doing it. I find that as a failure. The third is the point that I think someone Ved made about mentorship. Everybody in life needs a mentor. And it's not just entrepreneurs. Everybody in life needs someone who helps them, guides them, and has their best interest in mind. In this case, you need a mentor who has business acumen, who has some domain expertise of some kind in the area that you're talking about, and in simple terms has seen some of this movie before. So he has failed or seen others fail, he can help you. He opens or she opens some doors for you that you're not able to open because of that's the role they play. And on the soft side, they are the kind of people who are there as a sounding board, they are there as your cheerleaders, they are the ones who give you feedback. So it's the hard and soft. It is very important. It's a lonely job to be an entrepreneur in any business. You need someone with you. The best entrepreneurship that has worked from a mentor standpoint is ones which are trust-based. But trust happens over time. It doesn't start on day one, which is why when you do find a mentor, and there aren't that many who are really committed, you need to be committed for a period of time, because that's only how you do it. The other area that I think I have failed is the inability to put together a community of entrepreneurs who can talk to each other, share ideas, create partnerships, or even learn from, you made a mistake or you did something, how about I learn from you and do the same, because many things are common even if the industry is not. I mean, in every conference or meeting I've gone to where we have had entrepreneurs have learned as much from each other as they have from the skill capability development agenda that was there. This is important. Building a formal, informal, there are urban hubs for a lot of startups and urban areas, they do get fed. But I don't see us creating a community to help you people so that you can discuss and share ideas. And the last thing I think which really pains me, and I can't find a solution, is that every entrepreneur needs certain amount of specialized functional services. You know, it could be marketing, it could be distribution, it could be technology, it could be finance, it could be any of these. A lot of them are fairly straightforward service providers that should be able to provide, but we can't find good enough fit for purpose service providers for entrepreneurs of this kind and scale. And it baffles me why that is the case, but that is the other failure. So I'll be brief and say I live with these. I feel for everybody who's run in this business, and I promise I will keep trying harder.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you. Very deep and thoughtful. Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm going to turn to the most important subject, and of course we've completely run out of time. But without money, what can an entrepreneur do? So Dinesh, you solve the problem of finance, and then you will have lots of calls after this.
So that's why I was going to say, should we break for tea now? The joy of going in the end is, I think, enough has been said by highly experienced, seasoned panelists here and the entrepreneurs. So a lot of ground has already been covered. I don't know how much time do we have, Ved?
You have 5 minutes.
Because do you want to leave some time for Q&A as well? So
yeah, but I don't know.
Okay. So I'll just say, I mean, I don't want to repeat any of what has already been said. So I will call them gaps, which Sanjay was alluding to as failures. I mean, those are labels or words you can use. But for us to, as a country, as a nation, foster our ecosystem in an accelerated manner, especially in the non-urban areas, I think we do have those issues. We have gap in financing, funding. As, for instance, Buddha Institute that Ved runs and has founded, itself is a very slowly becoming more and more prominent and important part of the ecosystem for rural entrepreneurship. So we find invariably the cohort and the entrepreneurs who are associated with Buddha Institute, apart from mentorship, we find that they lack capital. They are ready to scale, they are ready to set up another plant, they are ready to go to more artisans, they are ready to enroll more farmers and FPOs, but they just don't have the wherewithal to do it, right? So, and there's nobody who's willing to come forward to fund them, apart from a little bit of government grant, or if you're a profitable business with predictable cash flows, then you may be able to get some bank lines, overdrafts, and some funding, but it's very hard to come by, unlike the startups we find in the urban areas located in the big cities, right? So most of this government funding of 10,000 crore fund of fund, which is channeled by SIDBI, managed by SIDBI, now slowly we are finding that each state is also sort of allocating some money and creating their own funds. For instance, the state of Uttar Pradesh has allocated 1,000 crores recently, with an intent to allocate another couple of 1,000 crores once that is deployed. But that money is also going largely into, in the case of UP, into Noida, which is NCR, right? And SIDBI's money is going into Bangalore and Pune and Hyderabad and so on and so forth, right? So, which is not really rural entrepreneurship. Some of those entrepreneurs may come from rural areas because they've got educated in urban locations or esteemed colleges or whatever. But they are not really necessarily working for the cause of upliftment of the rural population, right? So that funding is not there. And we are still largely very heavy on the inequality from an urban-rural divide perspective, right? 40-50% of thereabout our population still lives in the rural areas. And the divide is only increasing, right? You see all the wealth which is getting created, India growing at the fastest rate. I mean, what percentage of that has is percolating down to beyond the top 10, 15 cities of the country? Very small percentage. Most of that GDP or growth in income is actually coming into the hands of people who are living in the big cities, right? So which is why education from eminent colleges, prominent colleges has become very important driver for you to lift yourself out of poverty, right? Because if you don't have that, you don't get jobs in big cities, you don't get opportunities to entrepreneurship in big cities or create new products and so on and so forth. And hence, you can't lift yourself out of poverty, right? As much as livelihood is important, education has also become equally important because of that. So it's important that access to finance, some sort of blended finance, because you can't use the same criteria. The reason I alluded to scale up and with Unicorn as an example is because that's the criteria we use. I come from Siana Capital, which is a commercial fund. We invest in technology products and platforms. So our companies are also largely in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and so on and so forth. But our criteria is that, is it a rocket ship? You know, because we are looking for 15x, 30x, 40x return in less than 5 years, because it's a high risk, high reward commercial capital, right? But that's not what you can expect from a rural entrepreneur, correct? Who's doing whatever the 3 entrepreneurs described here. They will have slow and steady growth. They may be profitable, not burning cash, but they are not going to grow 100% year on year or 200% year on year, right? So hence they can't attract our kind of capital, right? The commercial high risk, high reward capital. So there has to be some sort of a blended impact capital which has impact metrics also as a criteria, not just the financial IRR as the criteria or the MOIC as the criteria, which needs to flow into the hinterland of the country and promote entrepreneurship, right? Apart from that, all other points are already covered, you know, whether it's mentorship, whether it's ecosystems, support, market linkages, and so on and so forth. And of course, entrepreneurship is very hard. In my experience of working with entrepreneurs, and that doesn't matter whether you're a rural entrepreneur or an urban entrepreneur, or whether you're a tech entrepreneur or non-tech entrepreneur, the degrees may differ, but I would say that, I mean, this is my view, entrepreneurs are next to God. I mean, it's so hard. Entrepreneurship is so hard. Unless you are plainly lucky in setting up, getting the right team, and you just had the tailwinds to grow and succeed, it is bloody hard, you know. I have seen up close some of our portfolio companies. I sit on the boards of some companies. I see their challenges day in, day out. You know, it's very easy. Compared to that, it's a cakewalk to work in a corporate, because you have one job which is described. You are part of finance or marketing or technology or HR or whatever. Here, entrepreneur has to deal with everything. He has to deal with attrition, finding the right people, finding the location, finding the customers, finding finance, working with mentors. I mean, it's just endless. And no human being, which is why I said entrepreneurs are next to God, because any human being will be challenged to their wits, right, by trying to deal with all these areas. Of course, they will learn. If they are passionate, if they are determined, if they are not going to quit, they will learn. As you mentioned, right, you enrolled yourself in some courses and things like that and learned. But the fact remains, it's very hard. So it's very hard. So kudos to all of you and those who are not even in the room who are entrepreneurs. But I think in order to have greater impact in a country of our demographics, it is very important that government and non-government ecosystem and funding should promote rural or non-urban entrepreneurship very consciously, intentionally, because otherwise we will have this divide increase even more, which is not desirable. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dinesh, and thank you, Sanjay, highlighting first of all urban-rural divide and the ecosystem itself, including from the government and the money that they are allocating. And if I were to talk about recently, I was in Davos. They are attracting capital from all the other people in the world. There's a UP, there was only UP, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra, and Tamil Nadu, and of course Telangana were there. They are further attracting capital from there. So you have brought the world of finance to us, and that is at all not it's percolating to rural entrepreneurs. So there's a big thing that's the question in the room. Can the ecosystem reach the rural entrepreneurs who are next to God? So any questions, 2 or 3, that we can take from here? Yeah, and then? That one, yeah.
And that also may, sort of get me to say that I have failed. But I also think that I have a long life ahead of me, hopefully, and maybe I can get back to it. I do support the area of women's entrepreneurship. And recently we have published a research report. So I was working for an organization called Magic Bus India, and we had published a report along with Bain on the state of women's livelihoods and the women's workforce participation. So what that report or our findings pointed to, and as is obvious, is that the bulk of workforce participation by 2047, if we have to take it to 70% from what is right now at 35%, has to come from entrepreneurship and enterprise creation in the rural areas primarily. Now, and of course I've spoken to about 50 industry leaders, I and my colleagues, so have a good sense of what the problems are. And I just wanted to check with all of you once again, in addition to the access to finance that you have pointed out, do you also think, because that's what also came about strongly, is that the very fact that the whole entrepreneurship is towards a market, right? So what are the emerging markets? Who will the entrepreneurs sell to? Is it a market that has a, kind of a growth? So the design of the opportunity, how important is it from your experiences? And I think this question is for you, Ved, as well as Sanjay, and maybe even Dinesh as well, that what is, in your view, do you think that access to finance itself is the biggest problem? Or is it also the design of the opportunity? Like what are they going to make and sell? Is that going to withstand, or is it going to cater to a particular demand? So in your, assessment, where does that fall as well, in addition to all other things that you have mentioned?
Very briefly, is market and finance, both.
I was wondering whether she was being hard on herself, because if she was, for example, catering to men entrepreneurs, it might have been an easier task to achieve because her enablers list would be much shorter, and the barriers to be successful as entrepreneurs would be much easier to crack. So when she was looking at herself, whether she has failed to reach the goals, whereas she was able to satisfy the donors, she was perhaps herself not happy with the success, because it's quickly too many wicked problems on the path, whatever women were facing to reach their goals. And I was just wondering about the matrix of failure in that case, and anybody, if they want to comment.
Yeah. We'll take one more comment and then, from there.
This is slightly a broader question to the previous panel as well as the current panel. So all the entrepreneurs that spoke, they pretty much started with a socialistic view of creating a livelihood, respectively. Now you are at an inflection point where you have established your business. And on one hand, people like Sanjay who are mentoring entrepreneurs, people like Dinesh who are funding it, there is always a pressure of when do you shift that cross that line, being socialistic entrepreneurship to capital-oriented entrepreneurship. So one, I would like to know previous panel's view, what would you be your drive to keep that socialistic aspect? Because once you shift to capitalism, whole purpose you started with is kind of diluted. As a mentor, where would you guide, to keep that balance? And to Dinesh, because impact is one lens that you kind of use from a funding perspective. When people are crossing that, do you have that balance in mind that they should still continue the socialistic aspect and not cross the line or not get capital oriented, because then the whole purpose is lost?
So Sanjay first, and then Dinesh and Kuldeep, you are welcome to
well, I can only give you my personal view, and I think then Dinesh will provide the macro and the view of it. So So I don't see it in terms of socialist and capitalistic model. The way I think about it is, what is the purpose of the business? What is the highest order purpose that you can think of, or why you're doing what you're doing, which then wakes you up and makes you feel excited about what you're doing? So I deal with entrepreneurs who are urban, and I deal with entrepreneurs who are impact entrepreneurs, and others who are fairly conventional entrepreneurs of the kind that you would be aware of. And I think the reason I asked the question about what keeps them awake at night is exactly that. So I work with a impact entrepreneur who makes rag dolls, and they become quite successful in doing that. But they have started with 5 women from the village who were working there, and they skilled them, and now they have over 100, but exactly like your story. Yeah. I think about those women when I'm mentoring that startup. That's all that I think about, that these women depend on this business. So there is a stronger and a bigger purpose that I see there than if I'm mentoring a dairy company that's trying to sell cheese and ham and whatever else and trying to make some money. So I think it's a much more powerful idea when you're an impact entrepreneur, because it's not just the livelihood of those women. These people are now thinking of giving them equity in the business so that there is an asset formation that's happening for all their people. So it can keep going on. So it's a never ending. So start by getting people who are not women, who are not working from home, start giving them 15,000 rupees guaranteed every month for the work they do, then 30,000, then giving them shares in the company, building the value of the company so that they can actually see that they have an asset. So to me, impact entrepreneurship is the most powerful because the purpose is very clear, which doesn't mean it isn't clear in the others, but it doesn't come through as clearly to me often.
Yeah, so Varsha, the point that you raised, it was actually on my list. I forgot to talk about it. Institute cohort that we have seen because of COVID struggle because of this conflict between social conscience versus capitalistic mindset while running an enterprise, right? So for instance, in COVID, if your business shuts down, you're not able to sell, you're not able to lift your business, there are no orders, nothing. What do? And you employ poor women or poor workers who can't make their ends meet if they don't get their wages, right? And if you keep them, you're only warehousing all the produce that they're making, and you're burning your working capital by making the payroll. So that's where the conflict comes, right? But that's just an example of, in those situations where you lean, reflects the culture and mindset of the entrepreneur, right? Whether you fire them and take a capitalistic view that business has to survive, otherwise all of us will drown. I mean, they'll be able to make their wages for a few months, but then all of us will drown, right? So, but I would say in general, generally speaking, my personal view is that any sustainable enterprise has to be profitable, has to make money, because that's the only way it can create larger and larger impact. It cannot depend on doles. It cannot just wash off capital from any source that it gets, because it has to be accountable to every stakeholder in the ecosystem for it to survive and scale, right? But the only difference I will make is that you can't run impact enterprise, quote unquote impact enterprise. Those are just labels, but I'm trying to sort of convey my point. With this mindset that I can profit at the cost of my workers. So you have to have culturally enshrined like fair wages, fair profit, fair policies, and accountable to all the stakeholders, including community and so on and so forth. If you run an enterprise like that, there's nobody who says you should not make money. You should make money. In fact, that's how, for instance, Infosys wouldn't be what it is, though Mr. Murthy gave stock options to everyone, and a lot of people are wealthy today. Now, it's a different debate whether they deserved it, they don't deserve it, because they were still paid their wages, right? But Infosys, if they were not making profits, they were not focused on quality, they were not fair to their customers and delivering, they wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. But it has made a huge impact to society. So the distinction is, you can't run a business with this motive of only making profit for the shareholders, including the promoter. Then you have a concentrated capitalistic mindset, which is not good, right? Which is not desirable. So otherwise, it's okay.
Kuldeep? You can also answer that question, market versus.
I don't think I have a very well-defined response to your question, but at a principle level, I don't think it's a binary. I don't think you have to be this or that, right? And one good example is Selco in itself, right? They have kept the mission at the center. When I started my journey, Selco was already 12 years old in the ecosystem, and I was a 23-year-old boy. And for me, it was the first reference point I had of an organization which has kept the mission at the center, but is generating revenues. But what I learned from Selco's journey was that how the founder, how Harish, kind of imbibed those values, right? So now, ultimately, it depends at what stage of life the entrepreneur is in, also, right? And at what stage the organization is in. So I don't think it is either this or that. And also, there are certain organizations where you'll never be sustainable. If you're running a support care for people in underserved communities who are suffering from leprosy, then you will need to have support. So I think also recognizing that there are certain social ventures which will never be sustainable, and it's okay because they're filling a gap in the society which otherwise is not being filled, right? So I think that's also very kind of important to understand, or else we might go on the other extreme and just think that, okay, everything has to, like even sustainability, financial sustainability is a component of sustainability, but sustainability as a term in itself would be a little bit more holistic. So that's how I would say, and I think that's the role impact enterprises play, is to bring that sense of holistic view and functioning in a society wherein probably certain labels are probably becoming more dominant and loud. And I think that's the, so I always say that the role of impact enterprises is like being a hyena in a forest. Nobody comes to the forest to look at the hyenas because we want the big cats. But it is the impact enterprises which will put the big cats, either the governments or the markets, bring that counterbalance. So I would see it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to, because Savita ji is not there and I've been up like a part of the journey, the way I interpreted what she said, and it could be because I'm not a woman entrepreneur, so obviously I will not be able to relate to what she was saying, but what I picked up from her journey, because we did something similar as well. I think where I was able to resonate with her failure was because I think I've experienced that failure as well, is you continuously as an entrepreneur at the start of your journey say, put yourself in the other person's shoes. And somewhere in the journey, in her case and probably in our case also, in my case also, it became all about you creating these, this checklist, she said, right? The variables in place. And then you very quickly realize that those variables are very fragile in nature and it's not accounting for the dynamism of the audience you're working with. And then, at least for me, it was a sense of failure that I was not able to step into their shoes. And instead of stepping into their shoes, I kind of made the whole process even more complicated. Right, that, okay, now if you have to find a young entrepreneur, we have to look for these matrices. But eventually what she said was that how could we have created a common playing ground wherein anybody could have opted in and opted out. So I think that struggle you face as a social entrepreneur, wherein you want to make this balance of giving the funder what you want, but if you go slightly too much on that, then sometimes you kind of, at least I feel inadequate and like an imposter, because then I'm not adding value to the stakeholder I'm working with and almost putting the pressure of the donor unknowingly on them. So are you doing that tick mark? So that's how I picked it up, at least what she said.
Okay. Thank you for the wonderful session. I think we have to close. Only 2 or 3 remarks I'll make. One, there is a huge number of entrepreneurs in the rural areas as well. We are only getting with limited advertising budget or no advertising budget, 500 applications every year. So that's one good news. A lot of it is happening, maybe scaling. Second, I think it's the job or the mission of the ecosystems have to be that we become more available to people so they get to hear about you, and so it will feed on itself. It's a virtuous loop then. If you have more, say, colleges, there will be more students that will go to colleges. It's that we have to do. The work that we have to do as ecosystem builders who are non-profit is to work with the larger system as to why they cannot be more sensitive and provide opportunities for rural entrepreneurs who are so passionate. They are solving the problem of unemployment in the country, migration problem in turn, that we need not have at Neriga for after some time. So I think that is where I think we need to do a lot more work. And finance, I can't understand. Hard finance word is hard to understand and hard to get. So I promise myself I'll neither go towards unicorns nor towards the VCs when I started the Buddha Institute. So that's my resolve. But I think we need money to actually set up and support enterprises. And I want to thank Selco Foundation for organizing this session. And thank you all for patiently listening. I think everybody's questions we could not get, but feel free to actually link with the entrepreneurs as well as ecosystem builders. Thank you all.